This is a super busy time of year for me. Winter in Maine is closing in fast, so I got to get all my summer jobs done and I got to get all my winter projects started. Stick around. This isn't a welding project, guys, but I've got to get this done. I've got to do a little bit of metalworking, I suppose, today, but I've got to get stuff serviced, and I've been racing the clock to try to get my summer projects done before winter closes in. It's getting cold here in Maine, and you can see this thing needs some attention, bad. I've got to change out some belts, got to work on doing some rust repair, got to do some lubricating, maybe do some rust conversion. So yeah, we've got some repairs we got to do on this to get this thing so it's reliable for winter. So let's get started in. Check out these belts, guys. I got a funny story I'll share here with you in a second, but you can see how bad the belts are. So we got to replace those. I had to switch around the bushing that was on this because you can see how it's kind of like worn the entire motor housing away. Somehow, I'm not sure quite how that happened, but we might have to mess with that, I don't know. I want to share a funny story with you guys. Prior to me getting this one, I had one that was given to me by my mother and father-in-law. It was a brand called White, and it was very similar to this, but it was like 30 years old. I never really had any problems with it. It was just getting older. It was getting a little rusty. The exhaust was loud and stuff like that, but I'm pretty good about maintaining my stuff, so I kept it going. Well, fast forward a few years. So again, that snowblower was like 30 years old. My mom was moving out of her house and moving into a condominium closer to me. So she figured she didn't need this snowblower. Her fiance had purchased this snowblower a few years prior to her moving, and then he ended up passing away. So I'm thinking maybe when she gave me this snowblower that it was like 5 years old, maybe 6 years old or so. As soon as she moved in to her condo, she gave me this snowblower, and I sold my other one. I didn't get very much for it. It was, you know, like I said, 30 years old. This snowblower, you know, God rest my mom's soul, this snowblower has been nothing but problems. If you guys even consider buying this snowblower, there must be something wrong with you, because this thing is a piece of garbage. I mean, I hate to say it, but I keep this thing going just in the memory of my mom, because the inside joke after my mom gave me this was that I could always tell if we were going to have a bad snowstorm because the fact that this wouldn't run. If we got a forecast for a snowstorm, I'd go out and check the snowblower and make sure it starts. Well, sure enough, it wouldn't start. I think last winter, I don't think this snowblower even one time worked during the snowstorms. I think it just broke down every time. I've done so much work to this. One year, it literally blew the head gasket right out of it. I've got a video on how I fixed that, if you guys want to check that out. And I'm pretty good about maintaining my stuff, but whereas my mom is now passed away, I'm basically just keeping this thing to live on in her memory, because I'm sure she's probably looking down right now, just giggling and grinning about the fact that this thing has caused me so much aggravation over the years. Like, to the point that I should probably put this on Marketplace and pay someone $50 to come get it and take it from me. Just to alleviate myself from all the aggravation that is associated with this. It's sheared off the blower implement. It's blown the bearings out of the auger. This whole thing up here, this is busted off the plastic multiple times. I can't even count how many times. It literally blew the whole chute right off it, so that I had to like patch this all together. It's sheared off the axle pins numerous times. The wheels rusted so badly to the axles that I had to use a torch to heat them up to get them to come off, and then I packed it all with grease so it wouldn't do it again. I think last year the motor almost fell off because the bolts had vibrated loose and came undone. And like I said, I'm pretty good with maintenance. This thing is almost a full-time job keeping this thing running. Between it falling apart and things not working, you know, the thing rotting out, we're going to work on that today. We're going to grind it down it's burned up, I think, probably close to 3 or 4 LL Bean and Duluth jackets, because this doesn't come from the factory with a shield on the exhaust. So if you go to reach down or brush up against anything to clean out snow or tighten this down, because this is how you adjust the height of the snow, how it shoots out, and you just briefly brush your coat against that exhaust, it'll melt the sleeve right off it. So I made this little guard. So yeah, so it's burned up a few $100s in jackets. This thing is just, it's a nightmare, guys. My mom's memory lives on, and she would just be laughing knowing that I'm struggling with this in a good way, because I had a super good relationship with my mom. But what we got to do, guys, is we're going to have to separate this into 2 halves. This is not a instructional how-to video. I'm just taking you along with me because I got to get this stuff done. Like I said, guys, it's always like hard because winter comes here in Maine so fast that, you know, one day it can be 80 degrees and then the next week it can be a forecast that you're going to get snow, and it's going to be, you know, 30 degrees days and negative temperatures for weeks and weeks. So it happens quick, and when it starts cooling off, you got to act quick. So like I said, I'm getting all my summer jobs wrapped up and getting all my winter stuff ready and all my projects ready and things ready to be serviced. So, you know, getting the pressure washers put up and blown out. I've never seen anything quite like this. It's almost like it's like disposable or something. And for those of you that have one of these and you haven't had problems, congratulations. Like I said, this thing has been nothing but a massive pain in my neck owning this thing. I think I gotta lower this down, and I gotta flip this up on its front end. Which that'll be good, because that'll allow us to service this part right here. We're going to do some grinding on this, and if we've got any patches, maybe we'll have to do some welding. I don't know. We'll see. Hey, look at that. I think I'm going to put this auger piece on the other side of this table, just so I can work on it at, you know, a good, comfortable work height, you know. All right, we'll get that out of the way. Then we'll bring this jalopy right up here there. Now we can get to the front of this thing. This table's awesome too, by the way, guys. It's rated for like 1,500 pounds. I love this table. I would highly recommend anybody who is thinking about building a workbench, or you want a fabrication table or something like that, to seriously consider one of these, because this one you can service, you know, 4-wheelers and pretty much everything that I have, I can put on this. And it's just so nice to have it up to a working height, and you don't have to break your back trying to lift stuff up, and you know, it's just a lot easier. This thing is pretty great. It kind of spoils you. So I'm not going to bore you with the cleaning stuff, but I'm not sure how this belt comes off. Looks like we got to take some things apart here. I'm not sure. You can see all the remnants of all the little like fuzzy stuff. That's the belt. So we'll clean all that stuff up. This is the belt that drives the auger. Never really had a problem with the auger not engaging, but I have noticed that the wheels, when you pull one of these handles, that the wheels don't always engage, and I think that that is this belt in there. And there's also a little wheel inside that you're going to see in a minute. And I bought that wheel to replace that. And we'll do an oil change on it. I'm going to try to get this belt off, and then we'll get working on the rust removal and rust conversion on this before this thing is completely rotted out. I'd love to go and get one of those Honda snowblowers, but we're going to see if we can get a few more years out of this. I'm tighter than 2 coats of paint, basically. I'm guessing they put this guard here so that when all the pieces and parts start, you know, vibrating off this thing, that they're all self-contained up underneath this tray so that you don't know that it's actually falling apart. That way it keeps all the screws and stuff out of your driveway. The weird thing about this, guys, is that there's no throttle. Whether you start it up at 80 degrees temperature or whether you start it up and it was 50 below, the minute this thing fires, it's full throttle, full tilt, revving right to the moon. That can be good for it. When the oil's thick and stuff, it immediately goes right to a wide open throttle. I always like to start all my stuff and just let it idle. My riding lawnmower, let it idle for a few minutes, let it warm up, and then I bring it slowly up to speed. But nope, not this. The minute this thing fires, she's right on the rev limiter. And then you can see just kind of a lot of crud. Definitely due for belts. I think these are probably the originals. We'll grease that chain too before we get it all back together. Nice and loosey-goosey. But that's that wheel right there, guys, that I bought. And that rides against this pulley down here, and that's what spins the wheels. That belt spins this pulley off the motor, which in turn turns this. When you move this shifter, it moves it either to the left of this to make it go in reverse, or further over you go, either the slower or the faster it goes, depending on where it's riding on that pulley. Pretty simple idea. Actually works pretty good. Looks like maybe if I pull that shaft out, that's what I got to do to get this hinge out of the way, and then I can get this belt off. We'll get a block underneath it, that way I can get the wheel off. Then I can have room to slide this shaft out. Try to get this clip off. There's that. Be able to just slide this out. Make sure we don't lose any other things that might be in here. A couple springs down here kind of holding things together a little bit, but if I can not take the springs off, I'm going to try to leave as much of it, there we go, together as I can. There we go. And that's that. That was pretty straightforward. Now this next part's kind of satisfying. You want to grab your wife's toothbrush and you can just start kind of going in here and getting all this stuff cleaned up, and then we can lubricate all these pivot points and make it last. Clean up her toothbrush. It's going to be hard, so you're probably going to have to wash it out with gasoline, but make sure you get this put back before she needs it, because you don't want to find yourself getting in trouble. And if you get caught, don't tell her I told you. Give her a little wipe down with some WD-40 and some Scotch-Brite. Not that it really matters, but while we're in here, let's try to clean it up best we can, get it looking a little bit nicer. Makes it easy to work on too. Put things back together when things are nice and clean. And the new belt came in. This is actually supposedly a better belt, or a more heavy duty belt, than what came from the factory. And this is the number if you guys are interested. Slide this down through and get it up over this top pulley. And get it past this idler. Here we go. There we go. And from what I understand, we're going to have to probably adjust the cables after this is all said and done. She got some pretty heavy rust. We're going to try to do our best to remove all this today, and then we're going to convert it with a rust converter And then we're going to paint on, just hand paint on some red Rust-Oleum primer or red Rust-Oleum paint. This is all stuff that you guys could do. That's basically why I'm showing you this stuff, because everything that I'm doing here are things that you can do. It doesn't have to be to a snowblower. It could be to your car or whatever to, you know, make it better, make it last. And some of the things I've done, this is the original cutting edge, and then welded on a lot thicker, heavier piece to the bottom, so it takes longer to wear through. These side plates here, these were all worn down through and digging into the ground, so I put a piece of flat bar and welded on there and kind of like put a 45 at the front, so if it hits something, it'll kind of glide up on it. So I've kind of beefed up to make those a little more heavy duty. But first thing we got to do is, I don't see any rust that's through and through, so what we'll do is we'll set up the grinder with a wire brush, and we'll try to clean this up best we can, hit these areas, and then we'll get some of that rust converter on there. It's going to be hard because this piece overlaps this, and that's where the rust is. So you really need to get something that is between the two, because that's what's causing the rust. So once it starts, it's pretty hard to get it to stop. But we're going to at least prolong it for a little while longer. There, I got the bottom side done. It's a little bit better. Again, I'm not trying to get it perfect, guys. I'm just trying to make it last a little bit longer and get it a little bit better. Again, like I said, this isn't a how-to video. I'm just showing you how I'm doing it, but I just wanted to bring in and show you kind of how it's looking to where I got it to right now. And we'll flip it up right now. Now I'm going to do the top part stuff up here, the stuff you do see or whatever. I've been looking around for 2 weeks to find my respirator and trying to figure out what I did with it. I know I used it when I was sanding drywall. I've looked everywhere, guys. I have no clue where it went, so I ended up having to go out to Home Depot and I had to buy a whole nother one. I just can't find it. I have no idea what I did with it. So I'm sure it'll turn up now that I went out and bought another one. Which that leads me to say that if you guys want to know about this and all kinds of other things, we would love for you to join our Facebook welding community page. And on that page is a bunch of really talented folks, a lot of great people, and you can join up. You can get all kinds of welding tips and see what other people are working on, share your projects, share your photos. I'll have a link to that down below. It also has a great place where you can share files, which you can't do in a lot of places like here on YouTube. So in that file folder, there's all kinds of useful information, like little handy charts and plasma cutting setting charts, and there's also a 3M respirator cheat sheet so that you know what cartridge works for what environment that you're working in. So if you're working with paint, you may want a certain cartridge. If you're working with cutting and grinding and welding operations, that'll list out those cartridges that work good for that as well. And this happens to be one of those. So there's all kinds of useful links over on that Facebook page, and it also has a layout diagram that one of the viewers uploaded that you can bring to any quick print and have it sent out to any size that you want, and you can lay it right down on a piece of metal and it'll give you all your punch marks so you can punch it out and drill it if you want. So that's pretty handy. So thank you to the viewer that had that. I know a lot of you folks have downloaded that, and like I said, you can bring that file anywhere and they'll make it to any size that you want if you just hand them that digital file at any quick print place. Now I'm going to get this ready to apply a rust converter. So to clean it down, I'm just going to take some paint thinner and wipe it down with a rag. Alright, now I'm going to try to save the decals the best I can, not get too much overspray on them. This one I'm going to kind of keep it fairly simple. Probably just do like a square outline. So this is what I'm using. It's just a duplicate color. It's called Rust Fix, and it just converts the rust over and it neutralizes it, and it also prevents it from spreading and continuing on. It goes on clear and it turns black. So it's been a couple hours since the last coat. You just put on a few light coats here and there. And you can see it's doing exactly what the directions say. It takes the rust and it starts to turn it black, and it neutralizes it and converts it to something, I don't know. But they say, and I even sprayed it down in there where it's like bare, so hopefully that'll help down in there and prevent it from spreading. But they say to wait 24 hours and keep it away from moisture, and then once 24 hours passes, then you can top coat it. So that's what we're going to do. So when we come back, it'll be 24 hours later. It's the next day. It's had 24 hours to dry, and you can see how this just like turned it to this black color. And now we got to get ready and prepared to start spraying this out. Initially, I was going to brush it on with a brush, but it's just going to take way too long. It's just a huge area. I was thinking that it was a lot less rust on this and a lot less work I had to do, but now there's pretty much repairs everywhere through all of this, so I might as well just spray the whole thing. Now, I hate spraying inside, but it's actually cold outside right now, so we're going to have to do this inside. So it's going to take a little bit of extra prep for me, because look at my workshop. There's just so much stuff in here that can get covered with overspray, and I don't want overspray over all of my stuff. So I kind of got to bag this up, get some ventilation going, and yeah, do it the right way so it doesn't make a huge mess from spraying. So what I'll do is I'll use my little sprayer. We'll talk about it as I get a little bit closer to doing it. It's just a cheap, inexpensive unit, but it works really good. But I've already started taking a little bit of Scotch-Brite, and I've just been going over everything, trying to get the gloss off it, just so that the paint will stick good to it. So that's all you got to do is basically just knock the gloss down, and then we'll wipe everything all down. Because it's the oil-based Rust-Oleum, we'll wipe it down with paint thinner. But yeah, I just got to go over it a little bit more with some of this Scotch-Brite and degloss it, and we'll be ready to start spraying. Now again, it might seem like a lot of work, guys, to do this, and it is a lot of work. Time consuming. It's not that difficult, but it's definitely time consuming. But you know what? Definitely a lot cheaper than going out and buying a brand new snowblower. And when the time comes that you do want to sell this to get something maybe a little bit bigger or a little bit newer or a little bit nicer, you'll be able to get more money from it. All of us are always looking, when we're trying to find something that have been taken care of. It's always nice to find those deals when you can, that somebody's taking good care of their stuff, because you know that they maintained it and hopefully changed the oil and tried to make it last. That kind of goes hand in hand. Generally, if somebody's going to go to the extent of doing what I'm doing right now, then chances are they probably also follow through with the rest of that, and that includes, you know, maintaining it, changing the oil and stuff like that. All right, I think we're pretty good. Got to wipe it down with some paint thinner, and then we'll get the sprayer set up. All right, here's my little tent that I built, guys. Come right in here. You can see I got it all kind of like masked off, and it's all ready to go. I got it up on blocks so I can spray around it good. And then right up there, I've got my fan suctioning up overhead, so it should blow all of this dust right outside, or overspray, I should say. I just take little thumbtacks and stick it up into the ceiling. It works great. Now for the paint, this is what I'm using, just Rust-Oleum Gloss Sunrise Red. I had them shake it before I picked it up, so I know it's pretty good. This is just a cheap sprayer that I have, an HVLP sprayer. Probably I'll put, you know, maybe half with paint, roughly. And then I'll just dump the paint thinner directly into this. People who paint for a living could probably tell me a lot better way to do it, but that's how I do it. Oh wow, look at that. That's bright. Wow, that's way more than enough. Holy, I went way excited. I didn't think this through quite well. I don't need nearly that much. I just noticed I didn't use the filter to strain it. Oh well. So what I do now is I'll mix this up, and I will continue to keep mixing it until it starts to drip at the count of 10. If it doesn't drip at 10, then I know it's still too thick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There we go. I would say that's just about the consistency I want. Any thicker than that and it doesn't spray good and it comes out clumpy. I'm going to try to keep my volume real low on this and the pressure down low so it doesn't create a lot of overspray still. Alright guys, I'm going to go spray this out right now real quick and then I will bring you in and show it to you. I want to show you something real quick. I've taken half of my little tent down that was covered in red paint. Come over here and you can see just how much of this protected my workshop from getting all stinky and overspray. There was no scent that came into my workshop outside of this tent. This came out pretty good if you're standing like 10 feet away. So you got some drippies and it's got some runs in it. Definitely got a shine to it. Finished taking down my tent and we can start putting this thing back together after it dries. I'll get the oil change now while we're right here. You can see that oil is pretty clean. If I tip it, you can definitely see how it's kind of got some tan to it. So yeah, it's not that dirty. I've taken off the gas tank and I just plugged it with a set of vice grips just because I have the snowblower tipped up on its face and I don't want gas dumping all through my shop, and as you know we've already drained the oil so there's no fluids in it. The next thing I want to do is replace this drive wheel. This spins that drive wheel, and when you move this shifter right here, watch how it changes places on this. So this looks pretty worn, looks pretty thin compared to this new one. I've taken this all apart to get that drive wheel out. I didn't show you how I took it apart, but I'll show you how I put it back together. I've got this clamped in the vise. And this is that part number. Yeah, this one looks quite worn compared to the other one. It's actually got like little pits and chips taken out of it. And it's kind of like malformed. Basically reversing just the order of what I took it apart as. That goes in here. While we're right here, might as well change the spark plug. It calls for a Champion RC12YC. That's the plug that was in it. And if you want to change it over to an NGK, the equivalent is a CS6, and this is considered a commercial plug. And I got this locally at my small engine dealer. And I just put a little bit of never sees on the end just to keep things so they come apart easy. And I checked the gap and it's supposed to be 30 thousandths. And now I'm going to spray on some chain lube onto this chain to help protect it. And it's just motorcycle chain lube. Got a little bit of overspray on it, so clean it up with some more acetone. Just on a paper towel, and we'll get this thing to shine. Oh yeah, look at that. Nice. And just move this over to this side. Oh yeah. Yep, that'll work great. So now before we button this all back up, I put a little bit of lubrication on this little wheel here, which engages the drive, and just kind of went through, wiped everything out. There's an adjustment where you measure from the side of this wheel to the side of your inside of this housing. It has to be a certain measurement, and if it's not, the right measurement, then you just adjust it in this shift lever here. Just check your manual to make sure that yours is within adjustment. This one is. I think this one's like 4 1/8 to the inside when it's in the lowest gear. Then you also have to measure this spring with this engaged, with the lever pulled, to make sure that this spring is at a minimum length of like 3 inches and a maximum length of like 3 3/8, and this is adjusted to within that measurement. So all the adjustments are just right. So now we can button this bottom back up and cover it. I went to my local small engines dealer and he sold me this. And I brought in my old belt to match it up to, so this should work. Stick it on there, kind of get it under. That's what we want. That belt looks like it's going to be just perfect. Next thing we got to do is depress the auger lever and then set the belt guide so that it's 1/8 of an inch, no more than 1/8 of an inch away from the belt. That little belt guide is right there. So I'll depress the handle and just clamp it with a pair of vice grips. Now this rod needs to be 1/8 of an inch away from this belt. Alright, now that we got the two halves together, now we can get the gas tank back on it and then get some oil in it and fire it up. I'm so excited, guys. Can't wait to see how this works this winter. Hopefully it'll be a little more reliable than it's been in the past. So this says it takes 20 ounces of 530 motor oil, so we'll dump her in and see where that puts us on the stick. 18 and some change. I was hoping to buy Pennzoil because that's what I really like for oil and stuff like this, like my lawnmower and things like that, but O'Reilly's didn't have conventional Pennzoil. At my O'Reilly's, all they had was synthetic, and I wasn't about to spend $11 a quart for this because I'm a firm believer that clean oil is better than oil that you leave in for a real long time. So you saw how clean this oil is. I'll change this out next year and it'll be probably just as clean as the oil that came out of it. That's 18, so let's add 2 more. There we go. Little over. It's okay. Let that sit a little bit and then we'll check it. Pull it around a little bit because it's got any pockets in there. See, look at this, guys. Look at this starter pull. I just fixed it not too long ago, and you just heard it. Now it won't retract back. This thing just breaks. I'm telling you, it breaks every single time that I use it. And it wasn't that I pulled it out too far, because look how far away this is right now. I wasn't pulling it out that far. Here's the snowblower right there. So, once again, it breaks. You know what I'll do? Just tie it right up here with a zip tie. It just makes it look junky, you know what I mean? There's more than one way to skin a cat. Because I don't use this pull handle anyways, I just made it that much shorter. There. Now it doesn't look junky when it's just sitting there. You can see that, but just a whisker over. So that'll be good. Once it gets started, it'll settle down in.
Is it working, Colton?
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna pump this a few times.
I'm stalling you.
You get the oil in it?
Yep.
No,
So
I'm
oil.
stalling you.
I think the switch goes this way. I think. Ready?
Yes, go me!
Maybe it's this way. I think we did all right. What do you think, Colton?
Good.
All right, let's put it away. Like, subscribe, share. God bless.
God bless.
Come on.